So obviously, we all know Putin invaded Ukraine 3 years ago at this point, I believe. And from there, it's been back and forth. And from there, the United States and European countries and others have decided to back Ukraine in fighting Putin. Ukraine, in of itself, really cannot sustain and fight a war successfully because they don't have the resources. So we provide a lot of money and weapons to do that. And so the numbers have been disputed, but some say 100 billion, 150 billion, some say 350 billion. Trump is sticking with, he claims, 350 billion dollars. And so he's sticking with that number. That's the number he uses. Others say 150 billion. Regardless, I think we all can agree the United States taxpayer has given Ukraine hundreds of billions of dollars to fight the war against Russia. Let's get a little bit of context, and Zelenskyy will go into this a little bit too in the overall Oval Office conversation. But let's give a bit more context. So they're fighting this war. Obviously, Trump was elected in November of 2024, and his big thing, a big campaign promise of his, and also a foreign policy approach of his, is that he claims he wants as less war as possible. Right? He wants what he deems in terms peace through strength. And so he campaigned on ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. And so there was talks about it. He wanted to do it sooner. He said he made promises that were a bit, hyperbole, that he would get it done within 24 hours of being elected. Obviously, that didn't happen. That hasn't happened. But he's trying to, and his administration is working to garner some type of peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. And so part of that is the United States, or the position of the president of the United States, Donald Trump, currently feeling that, hey, we gave y'all hundreds of billions of dollars to fight against Russia, and we want some of that back. We want some type of retribution, if maybe that's not the right word, some type of repayment or something. And so they came up, whoever idea was, we don't know the origin of the idea, but the administration has came up with this idea holistically and stood by it, and hence why Zelenskyy was here in the United States to sign this deal. A rare earth minerals deal. It's good. Rare earth minerals are good for industry. We use them in chips, and chips goes inside our cars. They go inside our phones. We use chips. They make our economy run. They make modern industry run. And so if you're looking at it from the United States standpoint, we gave hundreds of billions of dollars. We want our investment to matter. We want our investment to mean something. We want our investment we want a return on our investment, if you will, or the money we given to Ukraine. Maybe investment is not the right term. If we want a return on the money we gave to Ukraine, it's not just us giving them money, then we need to strike a deal first to do that. And that's what, the Trump administration's position is, that will eventually lead to peace, right? The logic behind it, or some of the logic that the Treasury Secretary and the Secretary of State Marco Rubio and others, and Trump himself and Vice President Vance and all the administration officials have asserted to the public is that, hey, if we get them to sign a rare earth mineral deal where we get access to some of the rare earth minerals that they have in Ukraine, we can, number one, bolster ourselves against China. We, number one, can have a stake, more of a solid stake in the future of Ukraine. And we will have, in many words, assets in Ukraine that are worth protecting, and that potentially, once we get to peace with Putin, prevent Putin from further encroaching, further assaulting, further attacking Ukraine. Because the U.S. has an interest there, and he will know, although Ukraine is not a part of NATO, and so we're not, through allyship, obligated to defend Ukraine, he will know that because America has a stake economically there, and because of our economy is now a bit intertwined with Ukraine, that Putin probably think twice once we get into this conflict of starting or sparking or engaging in another conflict. So that was the whole impetus of this rare earth minerals deal that you may hear people talking about and citing. And that, again, that's why Putin was here in the United States. All right. So he comes to the Oval Office Friday, February 28th. Different officials have different accounts, but they essentially say that this deal was offered to them weeks before this Oval Office meeting. But President Vladimir Zelenskyy, he insisted on coming to the White House and signing it. So he comes to the White House and signs it, right? Or he comes to the White House with the hopes of signing it. Customary, as is always customary, is for presidents and foreign leaders to come. They meet, they have a press conference, brief press conference, or they sit in the Oval Office. They may not even take questions. They sit in the Oval Office for a photo op or whatever, and then they meet in private, and then they do whatever they need to do. They will and deal, and then they come out and have a press a formal press conference, typically standing, and all that stuff, right? So this was probably the first, the first step in that process of a dignitary to visit, right? And I think two other foreign officials visited, President Macron of France and the Prime Minister of the UK came this week too. So it's the formality thing, right? But it didn't it didn't stay formal too long, right? It was about a good 35 minutes of formality, and then the fireworks that have flooded social media began. And I want to look at that. I want to dissect that and give you the context of I gave the background of the conversation, what led up to that moment. I want to now give you all the context of that conversation, right? It was a 40-minute, I want to get this right exactly. It was a 49-minute and 25, at least what we have online, conversation, almost 50-minute conversation in the Oval Office, right? That kind of devolved into what we all have seen clipped all over the internet. So let's watch the beginning of it together.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to have President Zelenskyy of Ukraine. And we've been working very hard, very close. So we've actually known each other for a long time. We've been dealing with each other for a long time and very well. We had a little negotiation spat, but that worked out great. I think for both countries, I think for the world, actually, beyond both countries. And we have something.
So Trump says we had a little negotiation spat. That is the sometimes the saber rattling and the name calling and the back and forth that leaders do. Trump called Zelenskyy a dictator, asserted that he needs to be replaced, removed, or hold elections. A lot of back and forth. Zelenskyy pushed back against the administration. So that's the public spat, if you would, that Trump is referencing here, or how he characterizes it. And now they're officially meeting to sign this deal, which, again, the Trump administration views this. Hear me. The Trump administration views this particular deal. They view this particular deal, or the signing of this particular deal, this rare earth minerals deal, as a beginning step, right, to, number one, intertwining a bit more of the United States' interest in Ukraine, and then hopefully getting to some type of peace, right? And you're going to see here, at least the Trump administration, or Trump's thinking in terms of the next step after signing this, or what he was hoping for, right? Zelenskyy isn't going to go for it, or at least has pushback.
That is a very fair deal. And we look forward to getting in and digging and working and getting some of the rare earth. But it means we're going to be inside, and it's a big commitment from the United States, and we appreciate working with you very much. And we will continue to do that. We have had some very good discussions with Russia. I spoke with President Putin, and we're going to try and bring this to a close. It's something that you want and that he wants. We have to negotiate a deal, but we've started the confines of a deal, and I think something can happen.
It starts off very cordial, starts off very, normal, right? It starts off fairly normal. There doesn't seem to be any, or at least it starts off normal and direct. Let's say that. It starts off very cordial and direct, right? And let's get into, from there, they talk, Zelenskyy gives his words. And then from there, after Zelenskyy gives his words, and President Trump obviously talks and gives his words and his view. From there, they begin taking questions from the press. And I want to go to about the 38-minute mark.
Right? When I was a kid, I looked at the United States not only as a most powerful country, richest country in the world, the country that has great music, great movies, great muscle cars, but also as a force for good. And now I'm talking with my friends in Poland, and they are worried that you align yourself too much with Putin. What's your message for them?
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, "Hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal?" It doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred.
So he's asked from some outlet that he's asked. It appears, Mr. Trump, that you align yourself too much with Putin, right? That's a belief that people have, right? Trump saying, "Hey, I trying to make a deal to stop the war. I got to talk to both sides." Essentially, is what Trump is saying in this context, in this instance. And so, after that question asked by a reporter, Trump answers, and I'll let him finish his answer.
And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
I want to respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy.
So Trump answers this question. Vice President Vance answers the question, essentially says, "We believe that the previous administration under Joe Biden talked tough to Putin, and he still invaded. And we're trying to engage in diplomacy, i.e. talk to both sides." And so he answers that. I want to go back just a tid here. And I want, after he answers, this is when Zelenskyy wants to respond. And he really asserts or asks a question of the vice president. And that's when it gets or goes, quote unquote, off the rails.
Pumping our chest and pretending that the president of the United States' words mattered more than the president of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, parts of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact?
2015.
2014.
2014 is
Oh, 2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
yeah, but,
That's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, the situation the same. That people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversations, my bilateral conversations.
So here, he essentially President Zelenskyy is saying, "Hey, looking at history of how Putin has acted, he took Crimea, which is a portion of Ukraine. He took the Donbass, which is another portion of Ukraine, right? He took land under Obama. He took land under Biden. He has not particularly engaged or honored, in Zelensky's view, ceasefires. And he essentially asks, what makes you think it's going to work this time?" This is where I think, or this is where it appears to be the misunderstanding, and where Zelenskyy, who was supposed to show up, signed this rare earth minerals deal, which the United States wanted as a beginning step to then begin to help negotiate peace between Ukraine and Russia, he then talks about ceasefires, the history that Putin has had in his belief of dishonoring those ceasefires, right? And taking land and continuing to take portions of Ukraine. And this, and how he communicates it, obviously pisses off the vice president and the president. Let's listen.
During the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless. You
Don't-
will not
you
have
gotta-
a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
I'm not.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
You
We're
will,
going to feel
you
very
will
good.
feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very
You
strong.
will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the
bad
very
position,
beginning
and
of
he
the
happens
war.
to be right
From
about
the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a
Brown,
good position.
I was-
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start
I'm
having
not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
Yeah, you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
of
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
What do you think
You're
about-
gambling with
what do you
World
think
War III. And
about-
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
I'm
Let's
with
back
all
you.
respect.
So in this exchange, he's going back and forth, and he essentially says, "You talking about a ceasefire? Putin's history of ceasefires ain't been good. What makes you think it's going to work this time? Diplomacy. What makes you think it's going to work this time?" To Vice President Vance and to President Trump, it appears that question, or the line of question from Zelenskyy, signals that he doesn't want peace, but he came to sign a deal they thought that would begin or be the first step or step in the process to get peace, or to start negotiations or continue the negotiations for peace with Russia and Ukraine. So it's this back and forth. It's this back and forth, right? It's this back and forth. 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 And Trump says directly, "You don't have any leverage here." Trump says, "You don't have the cards. You don't have the cards. We have the cards. We have the power. We're giving you the money to fight this war." And at one point, they go to say, and Trump directly says to him, "Had we not given you money, this war would have been over in a matter of days. Had we not supported you," in saying essentially Russia would have defeated you had we not backed you. We backed you, and now we want you to sign this deal to begin the process of peace. And Zelenskyy is saying, "Hey, I want peace." At least he says he wants peace, but I'm not signing anything, or in the sense, I'm not going to do a ceasefire with Putin or talk or engage in that, because I don't think he's going to essentially be truthful. I think they're talking about two different things. It appears they're talking about two different things. It appears the American government said, "Hey, we're going to do this ceasefire. We're going to do this rare earth minerals deal. And then we're going to get into other conversation about ceasefires and peace and how the peace process will look. But we want, number one, a bit of payback for the money we've given you." At least that seems to be the Trump administration's position. But also, if we sign on to this deal with you, this gives you our backing, right? This gives you our backing, is what appears to be being said. And so obviously the deal goes off, the deal is done, and it devolves into them talking over each other, all of that. And nothing signed. And Trump says nothing was signed because if we sign this deal with Ukraine, we're now intertwined economically with Ukraine. Therefore, if he doesn't want peace, why would we intertwine ourselves further with Ukraine? That's essentially what he's saying. Zelensky saying, I want security guarantees. I don't want a ceasefire. So it appears that the next step in this whole process appears, and we don't know what the behind the scenes conversations were that led up to this moment, but it appears that the next step in this process was a ceasefire after this rare earth mineral deal, some type of ceasefire, at least so that the fighting can stop momentarily, and then they can bring people to the table, and then they have a final deal to end the war finally. But this was the first step or condition that the U.S. had before even getting to that process. And it appears Zelensky is at that step or focused on that step in this public meeting. And Vice President Vance at one point says, and I believe we played it, or I believe we will, he says at one point, let's not litigate this in front of the public. That part we're not going to litigate in front of the public. And the big trope that's come out of this is he was just here to sign a piece of paper. He was just here to sign a piece of paper. So that happens. And let's watch a bit of how the rest of this ends here.
The cards. You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't with me.
For you what
That wasn't with me. That was with a guy named Biden, who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact.
So it appears that Trump sees this rare earth minerals deal as a security guarantee because it's intertwining the United States more into the economy of Ukraine, and therefore gives us an interest in making sure that Putin does not further assault the country. But for President Zelensky, he doesn't necessarily view this rare earth minerals deal as in itself a security guarantee, or at least he wants, as he says there, further security guarantees. Very, very interesting moment there. Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for tuning in. I want again to encourage y'all to subscribe, like, share, comment, tell me what y'all think about this developing and ongoing story and about diplomacy. It's calling into question what we have thought diplomacy should be, or how it should look and how it looks. That we saw this in the very, very, very public eye. So we'd love to hear y'all thoughts on this. Again, please tell others about Jay Shakur and what I'm doing and attempting to do. Just going to censor my long-form conversations and the weekly brief where I dive into current events and what's going on around the country in the news and in culture. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all next time.